Thank you very much, respected Professor Kulkarni, Professor K. N. Joshipura ji, Professor Y. K. Vijay ji, Professor Rajesh, Professor Sanjay ji, and my very dear friend Sastri ji. I think what we heard just now was a very interesting, I would call it as a satellite view of things, not a bird's eye view. Because Professor Kulkarni gave us a sweeping view of the scenario, what is happening in our country. And he also gave us numbers which are really overwhelming. They sometimes scare us also. And that is, I think, the beauty of our country, that when we talk of doing anything, the scales are huge. And when the scales are huge, challenges are also huge. We must not forget that. Uh, Central University of Himachal Pradesh is a young university, and we are here as part of celebration of their foundation day. And I think this is an appropriate time to really talk and discuss about these things. Because if we will not really talk and discuss about these things, I think we will not be able to uh, judge the kind of heterogeneity which exists in our country. It's not only a huge country, but it's a very heterogeneous country in terms of landscapes, in terms of needs of the people, in terms of haves and have-nots. So there are very different kind of dimensions which are there, and I would say, as we study in physics, it's a truly n-dimensional problem. As many students are there, you know that you can really think of some coordinates being attached to them. And if you look at it, it's a kind of a statistical problem which we need to really address. There have been many efforts in the past also to address these. And one of the biggest constraints in this effort has been, I think, not of the ideas, but of the resources. Resources in terms of, because it is always money which makes the mayor go. If there is no money available to us, I think we may have very good plans, we cannot really execute those. And when National Education Policy 2020 came, it was, very encouraging to hear that Government of India is ready to spend uh, 6% of what you call as the uh, gross uh, product of the country itself on that. But if you look on the ground, we are into the third year of the proclamation of the National Education Policy. We are nowhere near that. In the past, also, there have been different sets of abhiyans. For example, we had what you call Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. Then we had Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan. I think the basic idea behind these abhiyans was also to somehow create those linkages which are needed, which Professor Kulkarni also referred to. For example, how should we train teachers? Teacher training is very important element of Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. I think most of the effort is being spent on the training of the teachers in that Abhiyan itself. And there was also an effort to reach out to teachers at the grassroots level, primary, uh, middle, high school, secondary level itself. Also, if we look at a scenario of higher education, I think for the last almost now, I can say more than 40 years, a scheme of human resource development centers in different universities, earlier used to be called the academic staff colleges, is working. And I think by changing the name, not much change has happened. In the sense that lately we are seeing something which really made us think very deeply about all these things. And we know that this change has been brought about by technology. Uh, and suddenly today, when Professor Kulkarni was referring to this new kind of chat which is emerging, which is challenging Google also, we are finding that it has been disruptive. They suddenly come and they disrupt the things. And many a times we find that we are not ready to even adopt those kinds of technologies. I think one of the most important needs of the hour is that we should, as teachers, be ready to adopt these kinds of technologies and not with a will that we will just forget about our students. No, but how we can use it in our actual classroom environment and outside classroom environment to many millions of people who are not able to enter the classroom. If you go to any college or any school, particularly I'm talking about government schools or the public schools, which we call, you will find that there are more number of students there than the available desks or chairs which are needed for that. I very often hear when I talk to my colleagues in the colleges, sir, that there are 200 students and we do not have 200 desks to make them sit in a particular lecture itself. Now, how do we really address all those things? And I think this set of technologies have a window for us to really move forward. Uh, this pandemic actually has really taught us that what these technologies meant to us. I think imagine a situation where you would have found that we are not as teachers able to reach out to our students for almost 2 years. Imagine that situation. Thanks to this technology that we have not been, completely, cut off from our students. That was very important part which we must really remember. And there are certain things which we have learned which are always be going with us now. We cannot really forget them or just forget them. That let us now, because COVID has ended, let us now forget about these things. I think we have found some very interesting ways to use those things. Uh, when I was talking about heterogeneity of space, suddenly you hear very many arguments happening or very many case studies coming up in the country. Like, for example, there was a talk of Delhi schools. Now, in my state, I am hearing a talk about boarding schools. But what boarding? Day boarding schools. I don't know what is that concept going to be. Maybe it is like that the students will be given food in the school, etc., and that is what they mean by boarding part of it. But such kind of experiments are happening. Maybe there are some, elite things which are also happening. Elite in the sense that they have better resources as compared to the run of the mill schools. Uh, I can say that elitist infrastructure is being provided there, and they are serving not the elite of the society, but a society which really needs to go to such good institutions. Navodaya Vidyalayas are an example of that. I think they are having infrastructure very good. And if you will see around that when this national education policy has come, it has suddenly thrown so many ideas at us that we are finding that we are not ready to catch them also. One idea is of choices. And one thing which you must have noted, please correct me, Professor Kulkarni, Professor said that it is not a practical way of doing the things. It's not practical because this requires the right kind of faculty also to take care of those choices. Otherwise, what will happen is that you will have a set of, you know, if I may compare, uh, eating joints named, say, a dhaba, an adda, a restaurant, a kind of a dining room of a five-star hotel and so on. So they will offer different menus, and they will say, we are, because we are offering these menus, we have made whole of the system what you call choice based. Answer is no, because in these menus, when they list the items, there will be a restriction in those items because of the infrastructure itself. We were actually doing this in Himachal Pradesh also. That was a very rich experience which I was part of. That indeed it was a challenge, and that brings us to this very important part of thinking, that how can we meet this kind of a challenge? Is there a way out? One of the very difficult things which was happening as a result of floating these choices was that you cannot really make a date sheet of all the affiliated colleges in that context. The date sheet was extending over a period of, say, 2.5 months. So your semester is of 6 months duration. Once you try to fix these 2.5 months in that, you will find that the space for teaching itself gets shrunk. Now, this was a very important part which we must not really forget. And the important consequence of this is that when we are talking of making these kinds of changes in national education policy, should we really continue with the kind of affiliating system which is there in our country, or we should really make, particularly in the context of higher educational institutions, make them autonomous? This has to be there. If it is not there, you will find that logistics cannot be managed. Professor Kulkarni was giving us very interesting analogy with how army works. Army is able to work in that fashion because, I would say, as compared to education, though education is as important for the learning security, as Professor said, to the security of the nation, you also require a kind of money for, taking care of all those things. If money is not coming, nothing is going to happen. Also, there is one very interesting aspect which is being talked about, and that is also a kind of a solution to bring in this new space of choices also. Professor Yashpal has been talking about this for quite some time. Knowledge Education Commission also talked about it when they were talking about a kind of a what you call bouquet approach uh, or cafe approach. Very different names at different times have been given to it. But today, when we are having technology, when we have uh, classrooms available on the internet, can we really make use of those opportunities also or not? And there is another challenge. The third challenge which is coming here is that in the name of choices, when you have, if you want to eat a meal, you can't have all the choices available in the restaurant to eat. And if you want to eat everything, then you will find that you will be eating in spoonfuls of each item, not completely. So, what is that going to do? We are very much worried. Maybe we are in IAPT thinking about all those things also, that somehow or the other people are talking about slashing the syllabi itself to 30% extent to accommodate other choices of this kind. Will that be, yeah? So this kind of a compromise, if we do, say, in the learning of an important subject like physics or mathematics or economics or geography, I think that is not going to give us a good signal. We have to be really very much careful about that also. Sometimes, we are shown some what you call dreams, but those dreams ultimately turn out to be not that uh, kind of dreams which can be turned into realities. Like, for example, now there is a talk of that, okay, we will bring Oxford campus in India. or maybe Cambridge campus in India, or maybe say Harvard campus in India. But bringing these three campuses in India, actually it doesn't add not even a drop to the kind of things which we need in our country. And look at, uh, please pardon me, Shastriji, if I give example of your university itself, that in the last 13 years, this university has not been able to raise its campus. They don't know even today that when will they get transferred to their campus, next 3 years or next 4 years or next 5 years. And I think we have lost a wonderful advantage which was given to Himachal Pradesh. I mean, I'm not mincing my words when I say all these things. And then, many a times you happen that when we take certain steps of bringing changes, we do these half-heartedly. Half-heartedly because we want to play to a gallery. And this has happened in Himachal Pradesh. Because we started with a change under Rashtriya Uच्चतर Shiksha Abhiyan, suddenly somebody comes and says that no, we don't want this change. Without realizing that what they are bringing now is that what they have done is they have not been able to maintain either the old kind of a thing nor the new kind of a thing. And the whole teaching community and the student community got confused about it. Now, in such situation, I think we have to think of those steps which are possible to implement and where the change will also be visible. And that is the most important aspect of that. And when I'll just take 1 or 2 minutes more. Uh, in the new system, people are talking about mentoring. I think if you look at the current scenario of the education in the country, mentoring is almost absent. We are talking about auditing the courses. That, okay, you have a set of courses which you have chosen, but if you find that there are new courses which you would like to do, you don't want to sit in the examination for that, but you can audit that course. Because we learn not only by sitting in examinations, sometimes we learn when we have an interest in learning something. And I think this is something which Professor Kulkarni was talking about, a kind of an intuitive feeling in the student that I want to learn this thing. I must really go and learn this thing. If I am not going to learn, then there will be no way out. So I think out of this chaos, who can bring the change? I think the biggest game changer in whole of this scenario is the teacher. You cannot really treat a teacher as something who is dispensable, as sometimes people say, technology is making them dispensable. It's not possible. And we have seen it in COVID. That small hug by a teacher to the student, encourages student to learn. That's a very, very different kind of a space in which a student and a teacher relationship actually operates. So I think these are the few remarks which I wanted to make. Thank you, Professor Kulkarni, for in fact making us think about all these things. Hope we will get something moving in IAPT at least about all these things. Thank you very much.